Hi, I'm Quinn. I'm going to be responding to your questions that were submitted via Evans, and thanks for writing these out and asking and looking into my career, I guess. It's really cool, and these are great questions. This is really neat. So I've never done anything like this. So thanks for the opportunity, St. Mary's. Totally awesome. And I'm going to do my best to answer your questions in an expedient manner. We'll see how well I do that. Okay, so these are questions from the chair, Bernadette Hamilton Brady. So let me see. I'll see if I can go through these relatively quickly. How do you prepare yourself before a show? It depends on what the show is, I think. I think I prepare differently for a comedy than I do for a drama or something that's dramatic. For example, if I'm doing something dramatic, I tend to listen to a lot of music. Something that parallels what I think is happening in the show itself. And if I'm doing a comedy, that just tends to be what I do. There could be other things. A lot of times I'll just read the script. I'll read the script. Sometimes I'll have pictures, something that gets me into, for a drama, something that sort of brings, and the reason why I listen to music is it sort of brings my defenses down a little bit as an actor. I'm not in my everyday cynical guy walking around the street going, that's stupid, that's stupid, that's stupid. I'm trying to allow it to have its full emotional gravity, full emotional weight. If it's a comedy, I tend to just talk and listen a lot. I try to be as present as possible because so much of comedy is being aware and being able to respond in the moment. I used to be really good when I was younger at planning comedy, and now I think I've a lot more gone, let's see how this happens tonight. Let's just let your instinct take over and to kind of trust that. So that's how I prepare differently for each one. And each show is different, each preparation for each show. How do I calm my nerves and relax myself? Oh, so I've completely answered the question you were asking. Good. I don't know that I do. I get pretty nervous. I'm not entirely, I don't think you're ever really too relaxed on stage. I mean, I do try to warm up, a vocal warm-up and warm-up physically so that I'm available to something, but I am also just a ball of nerves and anxiety, kind of always. And so eventually you relax a little bit, but I think the thing that I tried to realize is that, I don't remember who said it, but there's a famous actor who said, yeah, I used to get butterflies, and now the job is to get all the butterflies to fly in V formation. You know, they get them all flying in the same direction. So I try to allow that to fuel me. Because if I focus on what I want and what I'm doing, it's a lot easier to get on stage and do what I'm doing, and I'm better, than if I focus on how nervous I'm getting and trying to not be nervous. You know, it's like going, don't think of a white elephant. Well, then of course that's all I think about is a white elephant. So trying to not be nervous doesn't work. I just have to accept that the nervousness will be there and focus on what I'm doing as an actor, what I want from the other person on stage. What was your favorite role that you had to play as? Hamlet's just maybe the best thing ever written for the stage, so that's pretty darn good. I'm loving playing Blackstash right now. I'm having an absolute blast, and I kind of don't want it to end. It's a lot of fun, and it's very meta-theatrical, so you get to have fun with the audience and with the people on stage, and you get to play and you get to invent, and it's a lot of craziness. That's a really, and it's new. Not a lot of people have done it. It's not like Hamlet where there's been a billion Hamlets. There have only been 4 Blackstashes, which is kind of neat. So I sort of feel like I'm walking on the moon after Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and the other 2 guys that nobody knows. Let's see, how do I get myself into character? What type of exercises? I don't really get into character. I think we talk about getting into character, and people talk to actors and about actors about getting into character. And I think we tend to think of it as like there's this character that lives up on this mountaintop somewhere, and our job is to find it, to go up there and find the character that's outside of myself. When really, I think the character is you in these circumstances, in whatever your character's given circumstances. So if I'm playing Hamlet, it's Quinn, the way Quinn would react if Quinn had lost his father and found out that he was murdered by his uncle. So then I start to use my imagination to go, well, what if? What if I was that person? What if I, Quinn, was that person? So that the journey toward the character isn't outside myself, it's inside myself. Samuel Beckett has a great quote about the artist's journey being inward and downward. And I think that's really true, that your job is not to find something that's outside of yourself, but as Evans has said before, is peeling things away that you don't need, and finding, that if you're playing a character who's a horrible sociopathic monster, which I've had to do, under what circumstances could you be that? And you can find them if you dig far enough. That's one of the scary things about acting. Okay, is it hard to get into characters? What has your range been? Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's not hard at all. Blackstash was not hard at all. Blackstash is like, I got it, I know what this is. I read the script and I was like, crazy, sort of flamboyant pirate. Yeah, totally, that's just fun. It's so much fun. I know exactly how it sounds and looks, and it's just silly, and how that thing, I know where that lives. So that didn't take a lot of work. But then you got to play stuff, sorry, it's not a minor earthquake, I just kicked the table. But then you got to play stuff like Solioni in Three Sisters, who is a sociopath and somebody who loves killing people, and is completely alone in the world. That's a bit harder to get into, but you still find ways, and you have to find it. I have to find the things that make me love the character so that I can understand all those other horrible things and what it is they're trying to do. They're trying to protect something, or they're trying to, you have to find the hero of your character. There's no way for you to look at a character like, I'm watching Breaking Bad a lot. So Walter White, there's no way for him for Bryan Cranston to just go, oh, he's this horrible monster. No, he became a horrible monster because he's trying to save his family. So that's you've got to find the hero. What is the positive thing your character's fighting for? If you're playing Hitler, which is always like this awful example, but it's true. You go, oh my God, Hitler, worst man in the world ever. Horrible monster, no humanity whatsoever. Hitler thinks he's the only one in the world who sees a clear and present danger that no one else is dealing with. He's doing it because he can save Europe. It's totally insane and evil and messed up, but you have to do that, or else there's no way for you to play somebody who's bad. There's no way for you to play someone bad who is bad. You have to play the positive. Well explained. Excellent answer, Quinn. How do I like working on Broadway? Yeah, Broadway's a different thing, man. It's kind of a money machine, and sometimes they do some great stuff, but a lot of times the great stuff that they do, I think the best stuff that they do comes from somewhere else. Peter and the Starcatcher didn't come from New York. It came from California and then went to New York, and it was been built. It's had all these different iterations. August Osage County was a huge hit, and it was from Chicago and went to New York. When I think of Broadway, I think of like Shrek the Musical, Pal Joey, which, is fine. There's some good work being done in it. There was a great book and whatever, and but it's just a different beast. It was the first time that somebody had come into the dressing room and said, okay, guys, now you're frozen. And I was like, what does that mean? And what it means is that your choices are made for you. You've made your choices and you don't get to alter from them. So that was my Broadway experience. I was like, oh. That said, I also had a relatively small role. I didn't really do anything. I played a character that was just on stage and present and kind of a threat to Joey, but I didn't say anything. I was just kind of there and carried some drinks around and was sort of like the new guy who then Joey had to fire because he was like competition for him. So I was basically character development for another character on stage. But that said, it was a great run, and it got me a lot of opportunities. So that was really cool. And I'm also really glad to be doing what I'm doing now, which is not being in New York. When am I most creative? I think when I'm alone and I'm looking at my script. I assume you mean in terms of acting. Also, when I am listening to music. I think that's when my brain turns on. I love music. Is it hard to memorize all your lines in a play? Yes. Other actors for some reason, they get annoyed at that question, like, oh God, is it hard to memorize the lines? It's the first thing we always get asked. But you know what? It never bothers me because it is hard. I don't know why that tweaks other people, but it is hard. And I have to go over and over and over. And it's about repetition, repetition, repetition. I just have to get those words in my head. And it's difficult. It's difficult. And I don't have a very good memory. But once they're in, they're there. Once they're in, it's there. And then about a week out before we have to quit, before the play's going to be over, I start forgetting my lines. I have to go over them because my brain is starting to make space for the next stuff. So about a week out, all of a sudden the lines start going. And I'm going, okay, I got to go back and look at my script because my brain already thinks, all right, we're going to get rid of this information. We got to make room for the next stuff. So, because there's not that much room up there. Okay, how far am I willing to go to get into character? Pretty far. I kind of allow roles to sort of take over my life sometimes, which isn't always healthy, and it makes things kind of difficult unless I'm living alone. Then it's okay, but if I'm playing, Evans and I did Romeo and Juliet, and I was playing Mercutio, who was kind of a self-destructive slob, and so I just stopped working out, and I was kind of surly, and I drank a lot, and was goofy and silly and kind of hedonistic. I mean, not in big ways. I didn't do anything crazy like crash my car into a bridge, not twice anyway. And that was a joke. But like just I just got looser. And I just, kind of stopped caring. And I could see I don't want to say that I wasn't suicidal or anything, but he was certainly self-destructive and ready to go. And so I think sometimes to my detriment as an actor, kind of veer too close to my characters. I think film actors do that more. And I don't know why I haven't realized that I'm not doing film. But I think part of it is that you just live as yourself in those circumstances so much in hours and hours and hours of rehearsal, and then on stage in front of people while you're really living that action. Sometimes it's tough to shake off. So yeah, I'm willing to go pretty far, and I know your teacher is too, but I won't tell any stories now. How do I deal with nerves and anxiety? Kind of answered that before. What ritual do I have prior to getting into character? I stretch. I do a lot of vocal warm-ups, and I listen to music. Really, if it's something dramatic. If it's comic, I stretch and do a vocal warm-up, and maybe I'll listen to music, but probably nothing that I don't need to be emotionally vulnerable. I don't need to get my defenses down. What's the greatest challenge you've faced in portraying a character? Gosh, I don't know. If I could think of what the biggest challenge was for me as a character, I probably would feel bad about it because I probably wasn't very good. I think I've had trouble getting out of character. With Soleoni and Three Sisters, I had a lot of trouble once it was over. I kind of didn't like playing the character. I didn't really like doing the show. And then I was like, oh, I just can't wait till this is over with. And then it was over with. I had this really weird Pirandello experience where I thought, who's going to take care of him? This guy's completely alone in the world. Who's going to take care of him? I have to be there to take care of him, and now I have to let him go? And I was like, that's totally insane. He's not a real person. He's you. You just pretended to be him. Oh, so bizarre. So anyway, I think sometimes I have trouble letting characters go. Yeah, Matt's tough. Question from Evans's section. From Bailey Ferguson. Are children more successful at immersion into a role because they're both ignorant and creative mind? I think so. I think they haven't had 20, 30 years or however many, 10 years of people telling them to stop using their imagination. They're kids, so they get to. And that's the natural state of people. And what we do now in this society is we go, stop doing that. There's an equation. We want to know, you have to solve for X. Okay, so just stop with the, you're not solving for dragon or I don't know, pretending to be someone else. You're solving for X. That's what you solve for. That's the unknown, and you have to answer it. And that's what that's what so many of our systems are set up to do, because we have to get things done. We have to have people who know how to build bridges, and they have to be able to solve for X. And we have to have people who know how the human brain works and the heart works, or else, sorry, my dog came into the room, or else, we don't have a society. So that's important stuff. But then, that happens as you're growing up. And then as actors, you kind of have to unlearn how to do that. And children don't have to unlearn it. They don't have to unlearn how to, they have to learn how to draw inside the color inside the lines. So their imagination is free. And if you go, you're on a ship and you're about to be shipwrecked, oh my God, here come the waves. And kids will go, ah! Because they see the waves and they know it's coming, and it's totally palpable because their imagination hasn't been hampered the way that adults' imaginations have been systematically hampered. And like I'm saying, it's not all a bad thing. People got to learn how to make cars, or else I can't get to rehearsal. I don't know how to build a car. So I need people to be able to do that. But on stage and for our craft as actors, we kind of have to be able to go to unlearn what we have learned, as Yoda says in a much more Yoda-like voice than I just used. Okay, what is something about acting that you know now that you wish you had known when you first started as an actor? From Ashley Runcie. I hope I said that right. I wish I had known that acting is not about looking and sounding like something. I wish I had known that acting is about action. It's about what I want, because everyone in every situation wants something from somebody. They want people to say or to feel a certain way about them, or to do something. It's not about, if I'm angry at my wife I don't have a wife, but if I'm angry at my wife because she didn't clean the house up when I asked her to, and the scene says I yell at my wife, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to make it look like I'm yelling at her, and then I'm looking and sounding like a guy who's angry. I'm pretending to pretend. Well, that's not really acting. That's a little bit of film acting, and most of the acting you see on TV. But in theater, you're really trying to get something from somebody. So the action, the anger, comes as a byproduct. The emotion comes as a byproduct of what your action is. My action is to get my wife to clean up the kitchen. That's me trying to get her to do it, to do something. It's a horrible example, but anyway, it's much more honest and much more real and much more connected because that's what people try to do in real life. You don't try to look and sound angry. You are angry because the person you're talking to is not doing what you want them to do. I apologize to my imaginary wife for that whole scenario. I'm sure she's lovely. Kathleen. Okay, how does the setup of theater and the type of seating arrangement change your acting and performance? Miranda Silva, what a great question. We did this weird thing in the 20th century where we turned out the lights and we made people sit in the dark and pretend that they weren't there, that they were just watching this thing that was happening. And there was a fourth wall, an invisible wall, and you could see through it. You could see the person through it. So I hate that. I really love, Shakespeare probably did the first half of most of his plays in the sunlight, when you could see all the people. They were all around, and they probably talked to the audience. He writes about it a lot. They probably yelled at the audience and said, boo, I don't like that, you're no good, blah, 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 whatever. That probably happened. And you have a lot of the characters in Shakespeare going, blah, 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 blah. Did you see what I just did there? Did you see that? Pretty amazing, right? Now watch this. They're talking to the audience, acknowledging that they're there. Theater is this shared event that we can't do without the audience. So I love it when I get to talk to the audience and acknowledge that they're there. And, so I like in the round. I like when the lights are on. Or at least you can see the audience. I like if we're in a thrust. I like being surrounded. You know, I grew up working on proscenium stages, and so I can do that as well. But I prefer thrust stages that go into the audience or in the round. So it does change the performance. I like being able to see the people that are there. There's some theater that just doesn't call for it. It calls for the people to pretend that they're not there and for us to pretend they're not there as well. Not my favorite kind of theater, but you know, 'tis what 'tis. What preparations, if any, do you undergo before auditioning for a role? Oh, good question. Oh, you know what? I think I skipped you, Victor Luna. I'll come back to you. That's from Crystal Chavez. What preparations do I go before auditioning? Auditioning's so weird because if you go into a room, there's going to be 1 to 5 to 20 people there, depending on what level you're auditioning at, and you know, they're producers or they're writers or whatever. You go into the room, and the one person that has to be the most important is the invisible person, the one that's not actually there, the one that you're imagining is there, and you have to get something from them. Otherwise, what you do is you go into a room to get people to cast you, and that just never ever works. You're never at your best. Or you try to go in and you try to show them what you think they want to see from you, which is also just a train wreck. And it's really, really bad. So it's so counterintuitive, but you have to go in and go, hi, great, nice to meet you, and be pleasant and be fun to work with and be available and whatever. And then you have to go, now if you'll excuse me, I have to get something from an invisible person and you're gonna have to sit there and watch for a minute, okay? So thank you all, but this is my time. It's such a bizarre, strange thing that you do, but that's, so really in preparing for auditioning, you have to, you know the stuff pretty well, but I think one of the ways that you can tamp down on the nerves is by making it about you and the invisible person in the room. So strange, but that's really the truth. Okay. What style of theater will be best for the performance? That's Victor Luna. What style of theater will be best for the performance? I don't know. Henry, stop. That's my dog, sorry. What style of theater will be best for the performance? I don't, I'm not sure. I really love meta theater. I love theater that's super aware of itself, like Peter and the Starcatcher, like all of Shakespeare. I really love that kind of theater. But I don't know what, but I guess that's sort of that's an individual proclivity. Proclivity, I guess, is the word I was looking for. As a child, what play or movie was your favorite? Why is that why you entered into the acting business? No, it's not. I wanted to be a writer. Batman. Batman is my favorite. Henry, stop. There's nothing. There's nobody. Maybe he doesn't like Batman. I love Batman. I love Batman because it took me a long time to realize this, but I always loved the Michael Keaton Batman. It came out when I was 9. I watched it about 1 billion times, and so I've been a big Batman fan ever since then. But I love Batman also, too, because I didn't realize this. I learned it later, but it's basically a different version of the story of Hamlet. It's a guy who's young and privileged, the Prince of Gotham. He has basically everything he could hope for. He has no reason to do anything other than just live and be awesome and be rich. He doesn't have to do anything. And then his parents are killed. Hamlet's father is murdered. They're murdered. And so, in response to that, both Hamlet and Batman undertake actions that are a response to that moment of losing their parents. So for me, Batman was the thing that got me interested in character study because he fights crime to kill the demons that he has inside of himself, in his head and his heart. He does an action in order to fix something about himself. In the same way that Hamlet does. Hamlet has to right this horrible wrong, and Hamlet goes about it in this really in about 1 billion different directions, and he can't stop his brain. He thinks too much, and so he does all these things and kind of screws it all up. But he ends up doing the one thing that he needed to do, which is kill Claudius, which is why I kind of don't think of Hamlet as a tragedy. I think of it as a really long learning process for Hamlet, but he does learn. And that's my weird take. But Batman does the same thing. Batman then goes out and it's really a story about the line between justice and revenge, which I think Hamlet is about too, but it's also, both of those stories are about an individual's response to loss and how they deal with loss. And so something about that attracted to me, and then I realized, and then I saw Hamlet, and when I was like a kid, I was like, a teenager, oh, that's amazing. And then I realized, holy crap, it's like the same story. So that's what probably brought me into acting, and also it's theatrical. It's a guy who dresses up like a bat, and the guy he fights, who's opposed to him, it wears clown makeup and kills people. And that's crazy. That's crazy theatrical. Somebody should write a play about Batman and the Joker. Because there aren't enough movies. There's only like 19 movies about it. All right. That was Kiana Cisneros. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing any and or all of this. Crystal Chavez, I think I said her. Okay. I noticed you were part of an improv troupe in college. Did you enjoy that, and how different is it from acting you do now? Very different. I did enjoy it. I still talk about it sometimes when things go wrong on stage. I go into improv brain, because in improv, it took me a while to realize this, but it's the opposite of acting. In acting, you know where this scene is going, and you know what's going to happen, and your job is to forget about that and just be present in this moment. In improv, you have to do both of those. You have to do two things simultaneously. You have to both be present, and your brain also has to be structuring. Where does this go? How does this end? Where does this go? Well, now I've got this baby dragon. What do I now? Do I try creating adopt a baby dragon business, where I try to sell baby dragons to people? And how does it go? How does it get bigger? Where does it go? What happens in the story? So writers a lot of times are really good at improv, and they're not very good actors because they can't stay in the moment. They can't just let go of what happens and go, what about now? What about now? What about now? What about now? What's happening now? What do I want now? What's happening? What am I responding to now? Instead, they're going, I know that I have to be angry because in 5 minutes I'm going to get to this. So they're two very different things. And sometimes when things go wrong on stage, I slip into improv brain. And then I have to be careful to go, okay, I got to turn that off now and stop thinking about the structure. Because in improv, you're structuring in your head. You're structuring where this is going to go and how the scene's going to happen. And in theater, in regular acting, you can't do that. Okay. That was Brianne Armstrong. Humberto Campos. I read an article about you where you said you believe for students of acting studying Shakespeare has the power to change the actor themselves. What do you mean by that? I think I mean that Shakespeare writes characters at their best and at their absolute worst. He's writing Prince Hal, Henry V, absolutely at his best, man. He's got that top chakra flaring. He is at his absolute pinnacle. He's on fire, man. He fights a battle against thousands of people with hundreds of people, and he only loses 11, or something like that. He's an absolute phenom. He is at the best of humanity in that play. And then he writes, characters like, Richard III does the same thing. He changes people with language. He's so on the ball and he's so sharp. And then he writes characters like Macbeth, who make horrible decisions and go, oh my God, I've killed all these people. The only thing that's going to fix it is to kill more. Sounds a lot like Walter White, right? That for those of you who know Breaking Bad, I've killed so many people that now the only thing to do is to kill those other two people who kind of know about it, and then to kill their sons. I mean, that's somebody at their worst. So I think studying Shakespeare and acting Shakespeare allows you to find yourself at your best and at your worst, and it reveals things about you that you didn't know, and it shows you the depth of your humanity. If you think for a second that you don't have the capacity to kill another human being, you're wrong. And when you study acting and you study Shakespeare, I think any sort of theater, depending on the character you're playing, you figure that out. You figure things out about yourself that you go, well, I can never think of myself that way anymore. It's a real ego shifter. So this is from Jasmine. Jasmine Schwartfeger. Sorry, I did my best with that. I read alongside you being an actor, you're also being a playwright. Does being an actor help you in writing? Does it possibly stunt your writing because of a focus on the acting rather than the writing? Good question. I just haven't been writing. I'm writing something now, but I think being in the room in theater really helps me in terms of writing. I would say that I have that when I'm acting a lot, I don't get a chance to write. When I'm not acting, I do end up writing because I need to get something out. And yeah, I think it does help being an actor. I mean, Shakespeare was an actor. I think that's why he was that's why he's, so great. His writing for the stage is the best we've got. Because he understands action, and he understands that people are trying to get things. So yes, it does help, because one of the things that Shakespeare does that he's really great about is jumping into perspective. That every time, it's hard to quote Shakespeare, because when you quote Shakespeare, some really brilliant line that he said, look somewhere else on the page and you'll find somebody who's arguing against it probably equally as brilliantly. Or sometimes not. But he's great about jumping into somebody's perspective and going, this is why you should kill this person. And the other person goes, actually, this is why you shouldn't kill this person, and that's why your argument doesn't make any sense. He jumps into those and lives completely and fully in them. So I think sometimes, for me, writing doesn't really happen that way, but I'm sure sometimes I think it probably influences it, being able to write from somebody's perspective. But I have to make myself think that. A lot of times when I write, I just hear dialogue, and it starts writing itself. So, yeah, that's that. I'm sorry, Jasmine, for murdering your name. What is the most challenging aspect of being the first to take on a role that's still on Broadway? Nevada Hankins. I think you mean Blackstash. Nothing. I think the competitive part of me says, I hope everybody sees that and sees this, and thinks we're better. I'll be honest with you, because I know, like, my friend is the guy playing Blackstash on the tour, and he's a good actor. He's a good actor, but I'll just be an awful person and just say I think ours is better. I think ours is better. And so the competitive part of me likes the fact that there's only 4 people who've played Blackstash, and I'm one of them. And I mean, part of me wants to be the absolute best at that. So I like it. I like that I'm going to be compared to the people who play it, and that there's only a few, and that because the cool thing is that we're the only production that's happening. There's a tour, there's an off-Broadway show. The Broadway show is now done. But, this is now becoming a machine, a money-making machine. And we got the rights to it before Utah got the rights to it before it had all these huge things and became this giant success. So we have the only production that does not have Disney's giant mouse-eared thumbprint on it. We got to do our own thing completely. If you see our production and see the production that goes on tour and was on Broadway or off Broadway, it's nothing. The design is completely different. Ours is huge and elaborate, and theirs is very stark and simple, which I love, which I think is great. I think it's really cool, and I think the reason why it worked and was so successful is because it was kind of the anti-Broadway. You know what I mean? It wasn't a bunch of big set pieces and a bunch of moving crap, and there wasn't Spider-Man wasn't swinging from the walls. It was real simple stuff. It's simple magic. It's somebody sitting on a ladder, and then the ladder lifts up, and you go, she's levitating. You can hear people gasping in the audience going, oh my gosh. So I think that's, sorry, I got sidetracked there, but I think I like the idea that we are a completely unique sort of sleeper version of this show. I think that's so cool, and the competitive side in me says, good. Disney came and saw our show, and they were, I think, actually, the woman who just between you and me, the woman who cast the Disney show, the tour, came and saw our show and said she saw the show and said, no, now she's kind of had to rethink some things about the way she did stuff, and it was like, yes, good, it's awesome. So I kind of like that, and I like being one of 4 people who've done it. And that's so I don't think it's really that, it's not challenging to me at all. I think maybe some people feel that way, but I try not to have too much insecurity about what I do. I do have insecurity, but I try to just go, you gotta let go of that, because it doesn't help you, and it just makes it hard in this business. So yeah. Anyway, that's all. Thank you. Those are all the questions. Thank you. That was so awesome and so much fun. And I hope I have not bored you to death or revealed too much. And thanks for letting me sit here and blab. It was really fun. Have a good day. Evans, I'll see you later.